Welcome back to Narrations, where we retell unforgettable films that linger in your mind long after the credits roll. Tonight, we enter one of the most disturbing horror films of modern times. A story of grief, secrets, and a family cursed by forces beyond their control. This is Ari Aster's Hereditary, released in 2018. Our story begins with a funeral. Annie Graham delivers a eulogy for her mother, Ellen, a woman she admits was difficult, secretive, and distant. Ellen's life and death hang heavy over the family, leaving behind questions and unease. Annie's husband Steve is calm and supportive, while their teenage son Peter avoids eye contact, and their 13-year-old daughter Charlie fidgets, drawing strange sketches in her notebook. Charlie is unusual, withdrawn, expressionless, and constantly clicking her tongue with a sound that unsettles everyone. At the funeral, she notices strangers smiling at her oddly, almost as if they know her. Ellen, her grandmother, had been especially close to Charlie, and the bond between them feels unnatural. Life goes on in the Graham household, but shadows linger. Annie works as a miniature artist, building dollhouse-like replicas of her life. Her art mirrors her emotions, controlled, fragile, and obsessive. One night, Steve receives a call that Ellen's grave has been desecrated, but he keeps the news from Annie to spare her more pain. Meanwhile, Charlie begins to display disturbing behavior. She cuts the head off a dead bird at school. She claims her grandmother always wanted her to be a boy. And sometimes, Annie sees visions of Ellen in the house, watching silently. The family is shaken again when Annie forces Peter to take Charlie to a high school party. Peter just wants to smoke weed, but Charlie, allergic to nuts, eats a slice of cake without realizing it contains walnuts. Her throat begins to close. Gasping for air, she begs Peter to help. He panics, shoving her into the car, racing through dark country roads to the hospital. Charlie leans out the window, trying to breathe. And then, Peter swerves to avoid a dead animal. The car passes a telephone pole. There's a sickening thud. Peter sits frozen, wide-eyed, unable to look in the rearview mirror. He drives home in silence, parks the car, and walks into his room. He lies awake all night. In the morning, Annie discovers the scene: Charlie's decapitated body in the car, her head left behind on the roadside. Her scream echoes through the house, raw and agonizing. The family begins to unravel. Annie blames Peter, Peter sinks into guilt, and Steve struggles to hold them together. Grief grips the house like a suffocating presence. Annie starts attending a grief support group, where she meets Joan, a kind woman who shares her own tragic story of loss. Joan becomes Annie's confidant, offering comfort that Annie can't find anywhere else. But Joan has secrets. She eventually introduces Annie to something more than therapy, a séance. Joan insists she has contacted her dead grandson and shows Annie how. Desperate to see Charlie again, Annie tries it at home. With Steve and Peter watching in terror, Annie calls out to Charlie. Glasses move, candles flare, and Annie seems possessed, speaking in Charlie's voice. The family panics. Steve drags Annie out of the trance, but the damage is done. A doorway has been opened. Strange events escalate. Peter sees his reflection smirking back at him. He hears clicks, Charlie's clicks, echoing in empty rooms. Annie becomes convinced that Ellen, her mother, had been involved in something sinister. Researching old photo albums and books, she discovers Ellen was part of a secret cult devoted to summoning Paimon, one of the kings of hell. The pieces fall into place. Ellen wanted Charlie to be Paimon's vessel, but now that Charlie is dead, the spirit turns to Peter. Annie warns Steve, but he dismisses her as unstable. In desperation, she retrieves Charlie's sketchbook, where drawings seem to move on their own. Believing the book is cursed, she tries to burn it, but her hand catches fire instead. She pleads with Steve to destroy the book, convinced it will end the curse. Steve refuses, fearing for Annie's sanity. So Annie throws the book into the fireplace herself. But instead of her, Steve bursts into flames, consumed instantly. Now fully unhinged, Annie falls deeper into the cult's grasp. Peter returns home one night to find the house transformed into a nightmare. Shadows move in the corners. Annie scuttles across the ceiling, insect-like. He finds Steve's charred body. He flees to the attic, locking himself inside. The attic is filled with cult symbols and candles. Annie pounds on the door, then appears inside, floating, sawing at her own neck with a wire. Peter screams as she decapitates herself, her head falling into darkness. He leaps from the window, his body crashing to the ground. And then silence. His eyes open. He clicks his tongue. Drawn into the treehouse outside, Peter ascends slowly. Inside, the cult waits, kneeling around a shrine. Ellen's headless body and Annie's corpse bow before a figure. Joan crowns Peter, now fully possessed by Paimon, as their long-awaited king. The cult chants, their voices rising in worship. Peter, or Paimon, stares blankly ahead. The camera lingers on his face, frozen, as the nightmare ends not with screams but with celebration. Evil has found its throne. Hereditary is a descent into the unbearable weight of grief, but beneath it lies something far darker, the idea that family trauma isn't just inherited in blood, but in destiny. That no matter how hard you fight, some fates are inescapable. That was Hereditary. If you enjoyed this narration, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Narrations. More chilling retellings of horror classics are coming soon, and trust me, you won't want to miss them.